Chris Hipkins.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. What a vacuous load of nonsense we just heard from Jackie Dean. An absolute load of nonsense to suggest that by not supporting giving absolute power to Murray McCully, somehow the Labour opposition is opposed to rugby, is extrapolating things just a little bit too far. I can assure the House and anybody who is listening in or watching on TV that the Labour Party, the Labour opposition, is 100% behind Rugby World Cup 2011. We are 100% behind the Rugby World Cup, and we are very much looking forward to seeing it successfully hosted in this country. And let's not forget how we ended up with the hosting rights to the Rugby World Cup in the first place, because Helen Clark flew with the Kiwi crew all the way to Dublin in order to secure the hosting rights in the first place. The Labour government was behind it, and the Labour Party remains behind it. So I want to turn now to part 6, the part that Jackie Dean was just speaking to, which deals with sort of remaining technical aspects of this piece of legislation, including the regulation-making power of the Governor-General by order in Council. So this gives the Governor-General a regulation-making power by order in Council on the recommendation of the Minister. Now, once again, of course, we come back to the concerns raised by the Labour opposition in terms of the regulation-making powers that the Minister will have effectively to overturn recommendations given to them by the Rugby World Cup authority. The Minister will not have to follow the recommendations of the Rugby World Cup authority, and so the regulation-making powers here given to the Governor-General effectively, because the Governor-General will be acting on the advice of the responsible Minister, the responsible Minister, in this case Murray McCully, is ultimately going to have absolute power to do whatever they like. They won't have to be guided in any way by the decisions of the Rugby World Cup authority, and that is the reason, Mr Chair, why the Labour opposition is voting against the remaining stages of this bill. And it's not, as Jackie Dean suggests, because we don't support the Rugby World Cup at all. We do. We are 100% behind the Rugby World Cup, but we support democracy on this side of the House. We support democracy on this side of the House, and we believe that the provisions of this bill, which could easily be remedied had Murray McCully agreed to support the amendments put forward by Trevor Mallard, where this could have easily been resolved, and this bill could have been passed with much broader cross-party support than it has been, because Murray McCully rejected that approach from the Labour Party. That's why we are continuing to oppose it. Finally, I want to talk to the clauses of this Part 6 listed on page 83 of the reprinted bill as tabled in the House, that to do with the service of notices and documents. As somebody who isn't a lawyer and who doesn't really pay much attention to these types of matters, I think it is important that when we're talking about the service of notices and documents, and we're talking about ensuring that processes operate fairly, transparently and so on, that there is real clarity around what will be deemed to be the service of notice or a document. Can it be electronically by fax and so on? So clause 89, as set out on page 83, makes it very clear when a notice will be deemed to have been issued or served. And I think that that's something that it's really important that the House is very clear on. There is, of course, a clause here, clause 89.4, which talks about if a notice or document is to be served on a Minister of the Crown, service on the Chief Executive or the appropriate department of the state is service on the Minister. So this really comes back again to this ultimate power that Murray McCully is going to have under this, and that he can be sending off missives to departmental chief executives, serving notices on all of his ministerial colleagues, and it's just a further example of the ultimate power that Murray McCully is being given under this piece of legislation, and that is why the Labour opposition are opposed to it. So we don't have anything really, I guess, that we're opposed to in Clause 6. Clause 6 is a pretty technical, non-controversial part of this piece of legislation. It's primarily Clause 4 that we have our concerns about, but I think Clause 6 gives further examples and further elaboration of why it is that the opposition has expressed so many reservations, how easily that could be resolved if the government were willing to take a more democratic approach to this legislation.
David Shearer.
Mr. Chair,
in the middle.
An excellent decision. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to also reinforce what my colleague has just said about Part 6, which is a largely an administrative, miscellaneous part to the bill, but nevertheless contains in it in Clause 88, the Governor-General may, by order in Council made on the recommendation of the Minister, make regulations that prescribe, and it goes through those prescriptions. Comes back to the point that we were raising before, that the Minister, and this is really cuts to the chase when we're talking about in Part 4. And why do we have that problem, Mr. Chair? Well, let's look at one of the issues that has come up in regard to the last few days and the debacle that happened at Eden Park, is because the trustees at the Eden Park Trust were all replaced by Minister McCulley. Minister McCulley changed the trustees, who then went on to change the management team, and the management team